Why are you getting out of an Uber? What happened to the SUV we bought you for your 24th birthday? My grandfather's voice cut through the crisp Nashville afternoon. He was standing on the porch of his beautiful Victorian house, his hands wrapped around the railing as he watched me step out of the rideshare. The confusion on his face was real, his silver eyebrows pulled together in a way that made my stomach twist. I hadn't even formed a response when my mother appeared behind him in the doorway. And there it was, that smile, the one I'd learned to decode over 24 years. The smile she wore when she had done something she knew wasn't right, but had already justified it to herself. Her sister needed it more, my mom said lightly, as if she were talking about the weather. Brooke just started that new job across town, and with the baby coming, she really needed a reliable car. Everyone froze. My name is Hannah. I'm 24, and I work as an assistant manager at a boutique hotel in downtown Nashville. A job I fought hard to earn after graduating from community college 2 years ago. I pay for everything myself: rent, utilities, groceries, all of it. I've been building a life far away from the constant drama my family seems to generate. But standing in my grandfather's driveway, watching his expression shift from confusion to something much heavier, I realized that no matter how much distance I put between us, some things had a way of pulling me back in. "What SUV?" I finally said, barely above a whisper. The question hung between us. My mother's smile wavered for the briefest second before she forced it back into place. "The one Grandpa gave you for your birthday, sweetheart. The black Chevrolet Equinox. Don't tell me you forgot already." I hadn't forgotten. I couldn't forget something I never even knew existed. My 24th birthday was 3 months ago. I'd spent it working a double shift because we were short-staffed. Afterward, I went home to my tiny studio apartment, reheated leftover Chinese food, and watched old cooking show reruns. My mother had called for exactly 4 minutes, long enough to say happy birthday, and then tell me she needed to babysit for Brooke. There was no mention of any gift, no car, nothing. "I never received any SUV," I said, my voice strengthening as everything began to click into place. "Nobody told me anything about a car." My grandfather's hand tightened around the porch railing until his knuckles went white. He was 78, but in that moment he looked like the same man who once built a construction company from nothing, a man people in Nashville still talked about with respect. "Patricia," he said sharply. My mother flinched. "You told me Hannah had the car. You told me she loved it. You told me she drove it to work every day. You said she cried when she saw it." Mom's composure cracked even more. "Well, things changed. Brooke needed it, and Hannah's been fine with the bus and ride shares. She's young, she can manage. Brooke has a baby coming, and her husband just lost his job at the factory. And you know how expensive everything is." I stood still, watching my grandfather's expression cycle through emotions I'd rarely seen on him: confusion, recognition, and finally something that looked an awful lot like anger. "You gave away a car that I paid for with my own money," he said slowly. "A car that I put in Hannah's name. A car meant for her, not anyone else." "It's family, Daddy," my mother said, slipping into the pleading tone she always used when she wanted something. "We share things in this family. Hannah understands that. She's always understood that, right, Hannah?" My mother's eyes locked onto mine, silently begging me to go along with her story, the way I had done my entire life. Be the quiet one. Keep the peace. Don't complain. Don't push back. Make room so Brooke can have whatever she wants. But something inside me shifted. Standing there in my grandfather's driveway, wearing the clothes I bought with overtime pay, I felt something crack open, or maybe fall into place. All the pieces I had ignored for years finally lined up, forming a picture I couldn't pretend not to see anymore. "No," I said softly. "I don't understand. I never have. And I'm done pretending." My grandfather slowly pushed himself upright, his full height and authority filling the space around him. The look he gave my mother made her step back without even thinking. "Everyone inside," he ordered. "Now." The moment we entered the house, the familiar scent hit me. Cedarwood, old books, and that faint trace of pipe tobacco he'd given up 10 years ago. I had spent so many weekends here as a kid, back when everything felt simple and I still believed families loved their children equally. We gathered in the living room, an uneasy circle of tension, and things that had never been said out loud. My mother sat on the edge of the antique sofa, hands squeezed tightly together. My grandmother, Margaret, appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, confusion etched across her face. "What's all this noise?" she asked. "Sit down, Margaret," my grandfather said. His voice was gentler with her, but still serious. "We're having a family discussion." I stayed standing near the fireplace, my legs too shaky to trust. The SUV situation was still settling in my mind, and with it came a rush of memories I had pushed down for years. "I want to understand something," my grandfather began, settling into his leather chair and fixing my mother with a hard stare. "When I bought that car 3 months ago, I asked you to make sure Hannah came to pick it up. You told me she did. You said she cried when she saw it. You even sent me a picture of her standing next to it." My heart dropped. A picture. There was a picture. "That picture?" I asked, my voice slow as the pieces fell together. "Was it taken in front of Brooke's house?" My mother's face lost all color. "Because 3 months ago," I continued, feeling more certain with each word, "Brooke posted a photo of herself with a new black SUV. She said her husband got it for her. Everyone congratulated her. I even liked the post." The silence after that was heavy enough to feel. To understand why this moment hit so hard, you need to know what my family has always been like. My mother, Patricia, has favored Brooke since the day she was born. I was 4 when my sister arrived, and suddenly it felt like I disappeared. Brooke was the pretty one, the sweet one, the one who never got blamed for anything. When Brooke struggled in school, tutors showed up. When I struggled, they told me to figure it out. Brooke got dance classes, piano lessons, art lessons, whatever she wanted. When I asked to join the school band, I was told we couldn't afford the instrument rental. So I learned early to stop asking and to earn everything myself. At 16, I got a job at a grocery store and bagged groceries until my arms ached. I saved up for my own school supplies, my own clothes, everything. When Brooke wrecked her first car at 17, my parents bought her another one. When I scraped together enough to buy a used Honda at 18, my mother borrowed it just for a day so Brooke could use it and brought it back with a dent. No apology. And it didn't stop as we got older. Brooke married at 22 in a huge wedding that my parents paid for entirely. I wasn't even asked to be a bridesmaid. Brooke announced her pregnancy 6 months ago, and from that moment on, every family conversation rotated around her. The baby, the nursery, what she needed, what she wanted. Meanwhile, I was working 50-hour weeks at the hotel, moving up from front desk clerk to assistant manager through pure determination, building a life that didn't rely on anyone. I thought I had finally broken free. I thought distance would shield me. Clearly, I was wrong. "So let me make sure I'm hearing this correctly," my grandmother said, her voice sharper than usual. "You took a gift meant for Hannah, gave it to Brooke, and then lied about it?" "It's not that simple," my mother insisted, panic creeping into her tone. "Brooke needed it. Her husband lost his job, and they have a baby on the way. And Hannah has always been independent. She manages everything on her own. She always has. Brooke needs help. Hannah doesn't." "That's not the issue," my grandfather said, his voice dangerously low. "The issue is that I bought that vehicle for Hannah. It was registered in her name. I have the paperwork. So tell me, How did you manage to give it to Brooke when you had no legal authority to touch it? My mother's face flushed through several shades before landing on an embarrassed pink. I told the dealership there was a mistake on the registration, she said quietly. That it was supposed to be in Brooke's name from the beginning. I had Hannah's old information on hand, so I just. You committed fraud, my grandfather cut in. You forged documents to transfer ownership of something that wasn't yours. It's family, my mother repeated weakly, but even she seemed to know how empty the excuse sounded now. We help each other. Hannah wouldn't have minded if she knew. She's always been the responsible one. Brooke needs support. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. You didn't even tell me the car existed. How could you possibly know what I would have minded? You never gave me the chance to be generous. You just took something that wasn't yours and handed it to someone else. My grandfather stood up. For a moment, he looked like the man he once was, the man who built a business from nothing and didn't shy away from hard decisions. Where is the car now? He asked. At Brooke's house, my mother whispered. She's had it for 3 months. My grandfather nodded once, then pulled out his phone. Then it's time to fix this, he said. The next 30 minutes felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's story instead of living my own. My grandfather made a series of calls with calm, steady efficiency, the product of decades in business. He spoke to lawyers, the police department's non-emergency line, and a towing company run by someone who apparently owed him a favor. Every time my mother tried to speak, he shut her down with a raised hand and a piercing look. My grandmother sat beside me on the sofa, her hand slipping gently into mine. I always wondered, she murmured, low enough that only I could hear. There were so many times things didn't make sense. Birthday gifts that disappeared, Christmas presents you never mentioned. Your grandfather would ask how you liked something he sent, and Patricia always had some reason you hadn't seen it yet. Tears stung my eyes, but I forced them back. How long? I whispered. How long has this been happening? My grandmother's expression folded into guilt. I don't know for sure, she said softly. Years, probably. I should have asked more questions. I should have called you directly. But Patricia always had an excuse, and I wanted so badly to believe her. Hearing my grandmother admit that hurt more than I expected. All those years when I thought my grandparents didn't care about me the way they cared about Brooke. All those moments when I assumed I just wasn't important to them. None of it had been real. It had all been managed, arranged, controlled by my mother to keep Brooke at the center of everything. The car will be here within the hour, my grandfather said as he ended his last call. I've also spoken with the authorities about the fraudulent transfer. They've advised that since I'm choosing to resolve this within the family and the dealership wasn't financially harmed, we can handle it privately. Thank you, I said, knowing the words didn't come close to expressing what I felt. Thank you for believing me. My grandfather walked over and rested his hands gently on my shoulders. The way he looked at me made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. I should have been paying closer attention, he said quietly. I should have checked things myself, instead of trusting others to relay information. That's my mistake, Hannah, and I'm sorry. It's not your fault, I said, glancing at my mother. She looked small, curled into the corner of the sofa like she wanted to disappear. You trusted your family. That shouldn't be a mistake. No, it shouldn't, he agreed. But clearly, in this family, trust has been placed where it never should have been. My mother finally spoke, her voice shaky. This is going to tear everything apart. Brooke is pregnant. She's under so much stress already. If you take that car back, she'll be devastated. Think about the baby. Think about what this will do to the family. My grandfather's expression hardened. The family? He repeated sharply. You want to talk about family? Hannah is family. She has spent her whole life being pushed aside while you funneled everything into Brooke. And I've seen the signs. I've seen Hannah arrive at holidays in the same clothes because she couldn't afford more, while Brooke walks in wearing designer brands. I've watched Hannah drive a 15-year-old car while Brooke is handed new ones. I told myself it was because Hannah was more responsible. Now I understand it was because Hannah had no choice. That's not fair, my mother snapped. Brooke has had difficulties. She struggled. Hannah has always been capable of taking care of herself. Because you forced her to be, my grandmother said, her voice sharper than I had ever heard. You didn't give her any other option, and now we find out you've been taking from her for years. Gifts we sent, money for her education, birthday cards, graduation support. How much of what we gave actually made it to her? The question hit the room like an explosion. I thought of all the times my mother mentioned money from my grandparents, money I never saw. The college funds that somehow vanished, birthday checks that supposedly went toward bills, the laptop that was meant to be my graduation present but mysteriously ended up with Brooke because she needed it for job applications. How much? I asked quietly. Over the years, how much has been taken from me and redirected to her? My mother's expression twisted into a mix of shame and stubbornness. I don't know exactly, she said. It doesn't matter. What matters is we're family, and family helps each other. No, my grandfather said firmly. What matters is that you've been stealing. You took from one daughter to fund the other's lifestyle, and you lied to us for years to hide it. At that moment, the sound of a truck pulling into the driveway broke through the tension. We all turned to look. A flatbed tow truck was backing up, carrying a black SUV I recognized immediately. That's my car, I whispered. That's actually my car. Yes, my grandfather said. It is, and it always has been. The paperwork is being corrected right now. Within the week, everything will reflect what should have been true from the start. My mother stood, her face tight with emotion. Brooke is going to be furious. She'll think I betrayed her. She'll blame me. You did betray her, my grandfather said calmly. You raised her to believe she deserved things that didn't belong to her. You encouraged behavior that isn't acceptable. If she's angry, that's a consequence of what you created, not of us undoing your deception. I walked to the window as the tow truck driver began lowering the SUV onto the driveway. The vehicle gleamed under the afternoon light. It was beautiful. But more than that, it felt like the truth finally taking shape. Like something that had been stolen from me was finally being returned. And somewhere across town, my sister was about to learn that the life she had built on lies was about to crumble. The SUV sat there in the driveway like a symbol of every lost gift, every stolen moment, every time I'd been pushed aside. And now, at last, it was mine. I stood at the window watching everything unfold, trying to make sense of the emotional whiplash from the last hour. Behind me, my mother had slipped into the kitchen with my grandmother. Their voices were low, too quiet for me to clearly understand. My grandfather moved to stand beside me, his presence steady and comforting. How are you holding up? He asked. I took my time before answering. I don't really know. Part of me wants to yell, and another part feels completely numb. It's like I've been carrying this weight for so long that I forgot it was even there. Now that it's been taken off my shoulders, I'm not sure how to stand without it. He nodded slowly, still watching the vehicle outside. I need to ask you something, and I want the truth. This situation with the car, is this the first time something like this has happened, or is there more? His question cracked something open in me. For years, I had brushed off the little disappearances, the shifted gifts, the promises that just never happened. I told myself it was normal sibling stuff, that I was imagining things, that my mother had good intentions even when her choices said otherwise. But now, standing beside someone who finally believed me, I couldn't pretend anymore. It's not the first time, I said quietly. It's been happening for as long as I can remember. My grandfather turned fully toward me, his expression serious. Tell me. So I told him. I went through everything. The laptop that was supposed to be my high school graduation gift, but ended up in Brooke's room within weeks because she needed it more. The college fund my grandmother had mentioned helping with, money I never saw because my mother claimed it went toward family expenses. The jewelry from my great-grandmother that was meant to be divided fairly between us, but somehow all ended up in Brooke's jewelry box. I told him about the smaller things, too. Birthday checks that were cashed but never given to me, Christmas gifts that vanished before I could open them, the savings bond from my christening that my mother cashed when I was 16, saying it went toward emergency repairs on a car I wasn't even allowed to drive. The more I talked, the more memories surfaced. It was like tugging on a loose string and watching years of explanations fall apart. Every strange moment suddenly made sense. My own mother has been taking things meant for me and giving them to Brooke, I said, my voice shaking. For years. The worst part hit me hardest. And I really believed I was the problem. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I didn't deserve the same care Brooke got. I pushed myself to be completely independent because I honestly believed I was a burden. I thought asking for anything made me selfish. My grandfather's jaw tightened and his hands curled into fists. How much money are we talking about over the years? I had never calculated it before, but I added it up in my mind now. The college fund I knew about, the gifts, the graduation money, and now the car sitting outside. Probably somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000, I said. Maybe more. I don't have records for most of it because I didn't know half of it existed. He was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was firm but controlled, like he was holding back a surge of anger. I want you to understand something. This stops today. We can't undo the past, but from this moment on, anything I give you will go straight to you, not through anyone else. No more chances for people who have shown they can't be trusted. Grandpa, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he interrupted gently. I played a role in this. I didn't double-check things. I trusted your mother to be fair. That was my mistake. I failed you, Hannah, and I'm going to fix it. Before I could respond, a car screeched into the driveway, making both of us turn toward the window. A silver sedan skidded to a stop behind the tow truck. The driver's door flew open, and Brooke stormed out, her pregnant belly visible under her designer maternity dress. "What the hell is going on?" she yelled, marching toward the SUV. "Why is my car here?" The tow truck driver took one look at her and quickly climbed back into his cab. My grandfather stepped out onto the porch, calm but commanding. "That car has never been yours," he said. "I bought it for Hannah. Your mother gave it to you without permission, and it's being returned to the rightful owner." Brooke's face twisted with anger. "That's ridiculous. Mom said you and Grandma wanted me to have it. She told me Hannah didn't need a car because she lives near work and takes the bus. She said it made sense for me to have it since I'm having a baby." "Your mother lied," my grandfather replied evenly, "and she has clearly been lying for years." My mother appeared behind him, her face pale. "Brooke, sweetheart, let me explain." "Explain what?" Brooke shouted. "That you're letting them take my car after everything you promised me? You said it was mine. You said it was a gift." "It was a gift," my mother insisted, panic rising in her voice. "Just not originally for you. But you needed it, honey. You needed it more than Hannah." I stepped onto the porch, putting myself in Brooke's line of sight. Did anyone think to ask me? To tell me about the car and see if I'd be willing to share it? Did anyone in this family consider that I might have needs too? Brooke glared at me. "Oh, please, Hannah. You've always acted so perfect. Miss Independent. Miss I never need help. You think you're better than us because you have your hotel job and your little apartment." "I live that way because I had no other choice," I said, my voice steady. "I was never given the help you were given." By now, neighbors were peeking through blinds and over fences. My grandfather noticed and motioned sharply toward the door. All of you, inside. This is a family matter. Brooke looked like she wanted to argue, but something in his tone made her stop. She followed us in, walking dramatically slow, pressing her hand to her lower back with exaggerated discomfort. We gathered in the living room again. The air felt heavy. My grandmother sat in her usual chair, her expression filled with a disappointment I had never seen from her, and it wasn't aimed at me. She was looking at my mother and Brooke. Before we continue, my grandfather said as he sat down, I want to make some things clear. Patricia, how long have you been redirecting gifts and money meant for Hannah to Brooke instead? My mother opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. It's not that simple. I was managing the family's resources. Sometimes things shifted based on who needed what. That isn't an answer, my grandmother said, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard. How long? The room was silent. Finally, my mother lowered her eyes. Since they were teenagers, she said quietly. Maybe earlier. I don't remember exactly. And how much money and property are we talking about? My grandfather asked. I don't know, she whispered. I didn't keep track. Hannah estimates between $40,000 and $50,000, my grandfather said coldly.